Yeah, hi Randy. We are on the east side of the Capitol grounds where there's now a line of state troopers guarding the now toppled Christopher Columbus statue. Hopefully you can make it out there. It is now on the ground. It had been up on a platform, but people here, a group of people were told, toppled it. We weren't here when the statue came down about an hour ago, but we spoke to someone who was. She said that it came down fairly easily, that a group of people essentially put a rope over it and tore the statue down. They weren't stopped. And as you can see here, there's quite a large group of protesters now across the street from where these troopers are gathered. In the time we've been here, we haven't seen any sort of visible conflict between protesters and the troopers here guarding this statue. We've seen several signs wanting the police to be abolished and an end to white supremacy, so certainly a number of signs in the crowd here too. This isn't the first Christopher Columbus statue to be toppled in the country in recent days. We should add there was a statue that was beheaded in Boston, and in Richmond, Virginia, protesters actually took Christopher Columbus statue, toppled it, and then somehow put it into the lake. So it seems now St. Paul is the site of another Christopher Columbus statue that has now been toppled by protesters. We don't know much more about whether this was a specific group of people that decided to come together and do this today or sort of more of a spontaneous group. We're still talking to people to sort of work and figure that out. But within the last hour, we're told, a group of people took that statue down and it is now toppled, as you can see, with all these state troopers guarding it here this evening. Randy?